So, we arrived here the other day. Clear blue skies, sun was shining. Did we record a bit the camera? No. We went for haggis nachos. Beautiful. Did we record anything yesterday when the sun was shining again? No. Because we had 3 distillery tours to do. No, what we decided to do was wait until this morning and then we would record our introduction to where we are. So we're getting soaked. But here we are. We're in Campbeltown, the smallest, littlest whisky region in Scotland. By God, it's some spot. And you're in for a treat when you see this. Right, I'm just about to go in and do the distillery manager's tour at one of my favourite distilleries. I have to say, Glen Scotia. I've been saying for ages that Glen Scotia is one of the best Scotch whiskies you can buy. It's even got its own ghost. It has lovely squat little pot stills. And we're going to go and do the distillery manager's tour with Iain McAlister, who has brought the place from where it was really to be in one of the really emerging whisky producers in Scotland. If you don't know Glen Scotia, it's sometimes a little overshadowed by a distillery just round the corner, Springbank. But it really does hold its own, and actually I would say Glen Scotia is probably a little bit better than Springbank. So we're going to go in, Justin's here as well, we're going to go in and do the tour. So come on in and join us.
Okay, welcome guys. My name's Iain McAlister, so I'm the distillery manager, master distillery at Glen Scotia Distillery in Campbeltown. Glen Scotia Distillery, 1832, so it was one of those early Campbeltown distilleries. Why Campbeltown? Well, I mean, Campbeltown, you know, it's getting here now is difficult, but it was always, you know, it was strategically placed. Fine natural harbour. It had the initial wealth here, you know, so you know it had a lot going for it. You know, they made their money through other ventures, herring fisheries, etc. Different bits and pieces like that, you know. And these original distillers, you know, they're all partnerships. So that's when they get legalisation sorted out, the early 19th century. Then you know they progressed into distilleries, and that's what you've seen. Small, compact places, because Campbeltown is obviously a region, but it's a town, a small town. Yeah. It's very, at its zenith there have been 9,000 people here, so it's always quite a small place. Yeah. So yeah, you have to 36 different distilleries here.
That's incredible.
It's quite remarkable, it really is. And the beauty of Campbeltown is, and you'll see it, you know, if you go to Glen Scotia or Springbank or wherever, even Glengyle, slightly more modern, but still get that ilk about it. Yeah. There's that kind of old world, you know, it's if you're stepping back in time when you come in here. Okay? And you'll see that, it's a mishmash of old, new and everything in between. And that really that's the start, I guess, of a good Campbeltown whisky, you know, is the surroundings, where it's made, you know, the environment.
We came down here yesterday, and I mean the drive down, it's a long drive, coming down, but it's stunning, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, I live just across the water, so I kind of look over this way. I live in Glenarm, so it's beautiful. I can more or less see it from the house.
Well, that's right. I mean, when you go back in time, you know, back through the centuries, then there was obviously, it was easier. There would be more communication with Ireland, Northern Ireland, than there would be with probably the mainland Scotland. Yeah. Because that's just the way it was then. You use ships. Yeah. So there was, you know, there was that communication there. So yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. We take it for granted.
we do, and people coming across, they just, their mind's blown. People coming from big cities in America and stuff, they come to Scotland and they realise there's nobody here. It's empty. It's all that empty space, and it's incredible. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, a lot of people, going for a wee tour, a lot of people obviously ask, you know, why Campbeltown, but that was the reason, you know, that the location, the wealth, etc. Why the demise of Campbeltown? Well, you know, it's complex. Yeah. You know, obviously the original owners were dying out. The spirit style maybe wasn't as conducive for blending as, you know, a Speyside was. you know, it's reached its end game really, you know, because by that point, you know, 1928, then it pretty much been running for
a century.
Well over 100 years.
Yeah. Taxation, the smaller guy, maybe it wasn't conducive for the smaller guy at the time, and I mean, there's a, as you say, there's a whole host of reasons. Prohibition in the States obviously had its effect as well.
Well, it did, but do you know the funny thing, and a lot of people say that to me, but absolutely, you know, prohibition had a negative effect on certain distilleries.
Yeah.
But probably a place like Campbeltown, where it was situated, was probably actually a positive.
Right. Why was that?
Because, well, when you think about it, the logistics, you know, obviously, prohibition in the USA, alcohol's banned. But as we all know, there was alcohol getting into the USA.
Oh yes, lots of it.
It was obviously going via Canada, it was going via
Cuba.
Cruises, booze cruises, whatever. You know, there's different ways of getting and Canada is probably one of the main ones where they were running it across the border. So a lot of that whisky was leaving from places. So yeah, absolutely. Documented evidence is scarce because you're not going to document something that's illegal.
Al Capone wasn't keen on keeping very detailed records.
Exactly. So you got to think Campbeltown, ideal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I try and tell people from the States that you could get alcohol legally in America at the time, but it was by your doctor. So it was a $4 prescription. That's what used to get your medicinal alcohol. And let's be honest, a lot of the heavily peated, sort of carbolic tasting Islay whiskies probably lend itself better to that. You know, I mean,
medicinal purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vincent Churchill famously got one. Churchill was going nowhere without booze.
Cigars and booze. That was it.
That was pretty much it.
It worked for him.
Oh well, it didn't do him any harm.
So this was built in the 1890s here. Okay, so this was a famous distiller, Duncan McCallum, who built this. So he owned Glen Scotia, but at that time, you know, you're coming to the end of the original owners, so he took over. He owned Glen Scotia, Glen Nevis, Ardlissa, Loch distilleries. So he came from very humble beginnings and obviously done very well for himself.
He must have done very well for himself.
So a lovely man by all accounts. He actually, believe it or not, he committed suicide in 1930.
Aye.
He's in here. Absolutely. He tends to get the name of hanging about the place even to this day. So
don't call Ghostbusters just yet.
No, no, that's it. That's it. I always have my wife always says to me, Ian, you don't need to worry, you'd walk by him anyway if he was standing in front of you. Ooh. Right, you know. How we doing? So, but no, right, okay, so what I'll do is malted barley, okay, so the old malting floors were in here, but obviously I get all my malted barley from Glenesk Maltons, okay? So it all comes from Montrose, east coast of Scotland. I've been using that now for 15 years, okay? The length of time I've been here, so...
what type of barley is this now?
Well, at the moment this is a Sassy, okay? So when I started, I was using Concerto.
Yeah.
I've used Lorette. Sorry, when I started, that's wrong. When I started, I was using Optic. And I went to Concerto, Lorette, there's Sassy, there's all the ones I can't quite remember. So there's been quite a few.
Yeah, there's gone through a few permutations.
Aye.
I mean, obviously there's a whole factor on, there's an argument now about barley being that's where the flavour starts, that's where it all starts. Does changing the grain make that big a difference?
Absolutely, absolutely. Even if you were getting malted barley from the same area, but it's malted by a different person, then undoubtedly that'll have an effect. All these things will have a subtle effect. That's hence why I've never changed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is costing £502 a tonne, roughly. So it's expensive stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always used it. It's all Scottish, it's all from Perthshire, because obviously that's more conducive to growing barley than it is in the West Coast. If it's peated, then the peat comes from slightly further north, Aberdeenshire. and I tend to do, again, over the last 15 years, it tends to be lightly, medium, or heavily peated. So lightly being about 1 to 20, medium 20 to 30, and the heavily peated beyond that up to 55.5 ppm, which I'll let you taste. Okay. So we'll taste some young whiskies today, so there's no hiding. So yeah, I mean, it all starts with this, you know, obviously everything about it, the nitrogen, the moisture, viability, everything has got to be spot on with this stuff, okay? If it is, then we're on to a good start. Yeah. And I think you'll see that, that's the beauty of Glen Scotia, you know, it's quite a simplistic process, but it should make sense, you know, if you get everything right, then it should really make sense. What we've got here is obviously a bobby mill, okay, so that the whole process, we're taking it through the conveyors, the elevators, and right through the destoner right above there, okay? And the destoner, obviously, it does what it says, okay? It's taking the stones out, it's clearing it light, clean, dust, husks, etc. Okay? From there, it's gravitating down into that square box, which is the malt weigher. Okay, it's just a set of scales essentially, with a small counter on top. Okay, so we're looking for that certain grind, if you like. Okay, so it's weighing them. So the malt's just gradually running through. How we open these slides or the plates, it'll dictate the speed it goes through. So it'll just gravitate into the scales, the weigher, and once we get 40 kilos, it'll tip. That's a coupe. Okay. So I'm looking for 70 tips, coupes, at 40 kilos, 2.8 ton, okay? So every coupe, every tip, will drop down here, and it'll obviously, 40 kilos is more than you think, okay? So it's quite a wee bit of material. So that's enough for the mill, so you're not overloading the mill, so it'll drop down, top of the mill, 1956 bobby mill, and you've got 2 rollers, okay? 2 sets of rollers. Specifically set, the settings in each roller, okay? Top, bottom. And that's obviously the critical bit. So that malted barley you've seen, we can't, eventually, we'll assess it, okay? This is a wee bit floury. So normally what you do, you take this out, you clean it, back in, start your grind, and then you would take a sample, take a representative sample of the material, then you'd know exactly where you are, because you take certain quantity, whether it was a couple of kilos or whatever, then you'd obviously put it through the sieve test and we would know if we're getting that. It's not quite 70, 20, 10, slight differences in the flour at Glen Scotia with the type of mash tun we've got, etc. So that there's a certain balance I'll get to, but we can obviously keep an eye on that. So that's the bottom roller. If I put that in and invert it, then that's the top roller. So on this side. Okay, so you one at each side there. Okay, so you basically take a sample out of there and you know exactly where you are. Okay, from there it's through, guys, up the grist elevator and into the grist case. Okay, so as I say, the mashman keeps an eye on this. When he gets to the tip 68, remember he's going to 70, then he's got to remember, shut these plates. Yeah. So there's enough material in the process to get your 70 tips through here. Okay, so absolutely, you look at the malted barley, then you've got to look at how you grind it, the grinds you get there, and if you get
that's very fine.
That's needing tipped out. That's what you get. If you've not used it tested it for a while, then you'll more likely get a build up of flour. But if you take them out, clean them, just empty them, put them back in, do your grind, then you'll get a representative sample. Because it's just because it's lying there, it's not been taken out and looked at. And I don't check it all the time, but I'll check it periodically. So yes. So As I say, along the off-mill conveyor, up the grist elevator, and that's us, guys. You know, we've got our grist ready to mash. Okay, guys, so what we've got here obviously is well, whatever you want, a rack and pinion type mash tun's what I call it, okay? Rake and plough, whatever, you know, it's the same thing essentially. This type of mashing, common in Campbeltown, absolutely, seems to be, because there's two similar mash tuns. This one's well over 100 years old. It's really hard to date, but it's well over 100. So, what have we got? Important aspects is, you've got the rake and the plough, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You've got the false bottom, so you get 42 segmented plates, brass plates there with slats in them, the sitting small feet, okay? And you've got this, the steel's masher, or the mashing machine, okay? So, what we're going to do is, we're 2.8 ton, we basically start the mash in here, okay? And it's very hands-on, so if you look round here, guys, you're mashing in, okay? Mashing into the steel's masher. The masherman's going to keep an eye on temperature. If you're like me, you can't see that one over on the wall there. Then you look at this one, okay? So you're going to open up the sparge line. You're going to feed the sparge in. The sparge is going to go right into the steel's masher. It's going to mix with the grist dropping down, okay? A little bit of conversion in there. Time you get to the end, 66 degrees. Porridge-like consistency, absolutely. You're mashing in on top of that steer there, okay? The rake, if you like, okay? So straight in on top there. And we'll back round here, guys. So, mash in on top of this, okay? You're going to take about 10,000 litres of water, 2.8 ton, mash in, 25 minutes, thereabouts, okay? Once you get it in there, okay, keeping your temperature consistent, okay? That's you done with this. You're going to put the steer around once, twice, then you're going to leave it, let it balance. This will be shut, okay? Most important valve in Scotland. Okay, so, and this is where the skill comes in with this type of mash tun, because working with this type of mash tun is really something you've got to be doing it to perfect it. You can pick it up really quite quick.
Yeah.
You get to know the valves. If you're following someone for 2-3 weeks, you'd pick it up, but it takes you a lot longer really to make it your own, to perfect it, to get the wee idiosyncrasies that really make it a good mash, okay? So, what you're doing here is, as I say, slowly, once that's went round, you've let it balance for half an hour. Slowly, 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 you'll open that, okay? And you're opening this slowly, and you're looking in. So you'll see the mashman like this, pretty much in this stance.
Yeah.
He'll be like that, holding that, looking. And once he gets the liquid running in there, the wort running in there, because the mash tun's going to be like that, the underbark's going to be empty, and you want to just balance it ever so slowly. So you want to start extracting that wort, sugar-rich wort. The conversion's happened, the starch is turning sugar there. We want to obviously extract them. Yeah. Incredibly cloudy wort, really malty, heavy duty wort we're getting here. The type of mash tun we've got. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. That's what you want. That's Glen Scotia. Yeah. Campbeltown-esque.
I mean, I know every element up to here, but whenever they're bringing these things in, and these elements, it's all building towards that sort of signature style.
Yeah.
They're bringing in that sort of creaminess, and I know that obviously helps stills and all this. But everything that's coming out of there, that elements that are unique, because you get people who want to run, you know, different levels of, you know, their wort, you know. And yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right. For me, yeah, really works well. You know, it's been fantastic. It's old. As you say, if this was probably a big organisation, then that mash tun would be long gone, yeah. Which would be a shame.
Yeah.
because it works, you know, it really works. So once we get it in there, guys, we can pump it, okay? So we can pump it through the wash bar. So we're really looking at that, 10,000 litres, we're looking at about 7,250, but you're going to get different. You probably get slightly more off the first water than you will the second water, etc. But if you think on it, it's even 7,250 first water, okay? Here, in here, we can pump it here because we'll just get lovely, sugary, robust, you know, lovely Campbeltown, Glen Scotia water in there, through the plate exchanger, cool it down to 20 degrees, through the wash bar, stainless steel. Once we've done that and we've taken it right down, add more sparge in, okay, we're going to add that in, okay, so the previous third and fourth water is going back in as the second water here.
Yeah.
And that's going in at 76 degrees. Same idea, valve will be shut, steer round once only this time, once, let it stand, let it balance, open it, balance it through next door. So we're ultimately going to end up with 14,500 litres.
Right.
Okay. You've got a third and a fourth water, which is obviously going to be the next mash's sparge, 85 degrees.
The last residuals, really?
Yes. Yeah, but 80% extraction with this type of mash tin, which is not bad considering what it is. You want to taste some wash?
Oh, what?
There you go. Just watch you don't get it down yourself, okay? Right like that. You want to taste that?
Oh, well, hold that, point at that.
There you are, okay.
Wow.
So guys, three wash bars outside, okay, so 9 in total, 6 inside, 3 outside, 2 fermentation or brewing tanks, okay. So that's what we've got there. So obviously the different waters we're working with. So ultimately 5 waters. You're working between these tanks. So when you finish a mash, you should have finished up with about 17,000 litres of sparge in tank number 2, and another tank number 1. You're working with your fresh waters, you know, for the mashing back and forward. So yeah, it's quite hands-on. You've just got to remember which is which valve is open, which valve is shut. If the valve at the back's open and you think you're finished and you know sparge in it, something's went wrong.
Where did it go?
Where did it go? So that's it. The boiler house, you've obviously got the boiler house there, but see in behind us there, that's actually Loch Ruin bonded warehouse, or what was Loch Ruin bonded warehouse. Where these houses are there, that was where Loch Ruin Distillery was. And over here, just over the wall there, is where Dallintober Distillery ended up. Started over just a straight away there. That high, kind of highest building there, it started there, but it burnt down and it was rebuilt over there. So all side by side, cheek by jowl, these distilleries. Amazing, amazing place. It really is.
Pretty much every distillery has had a fire. Has Glen Scotia ever had a fire at any point?
Not that I know of, touch wood, but yeah, it's had lots of incidents and accidents and everything else through the years, but, you know.
Every distillery seemingly has a fire. Well done, Glen Scotia.
I know.
Health and safety record.
Touch wood, that's it. Historically, there used to be 3 stills in here, which you think, yeah, it probably is, you know, that kind of figures the kind of Irish connection with Campbeltown and everything else, but obviously there's 2, so there's been 2, it's hard to kind of date, but I would reckon probably since about the 1920s onwards, 2 stills in here. Classic double pot still, absolutely. You know, and the main aspect with this still is obviously the shape, okay? So, you know, you've obviously got quite a wide pot, you got a wide centre section up to the swan neck, and the line arms quite long out to the condenser, which we'll quick look at. So it's going to give you that, you know, obviously that type of wash that we've generated there, it's going to give you robust elements. Okay, it's going to be heavier. Hopefully, obviously with the height there, you're still going to get all that lovely flavour profile's going to follow through, which it does. So is it typical Campbeltown still? Well, yeah, probably it is. You know, it's got that heavy aspect to it. The time you get to this, and we'll look at the safe when we go down, then it's slightly more slender. So it's kind of making the ethanol, if you like, it's working harder in there, okay? So the reflux is obviously slightly different than what you're getting in the wash still there. And it is quite interesting, obviously.
They're not very
no,
small,
no.
very sort of squat, bulbous.
Yes.
And this is obviously there's more difference between the blue station and still.
Yes.
Is this giving you sort of, is this where the body's coming into it?
That's the body, robustness.
You know, that sort of heavier, you know, the body of the spirit.
Absolutely.
And this is just refining.
That's right. You're getting your character there. So you're getting a lot of these elements. Obviously you need to carry a lot of that flavour on, and you will carry that on, but you're getting the structure there, you know, and that's really what you want with this. You want from day one. You don't want to refine it straight away to the point where you're ultra refining it and you're taking away a lot of the characteristics of not only Glen Scotia but here, you know, what is Campbeltown. So that's really important. So yeah, absolutely, you know, it's still at that. I mean, you've got to ask yourself, was it specifically designed? No, I don't think so. I don't think there was any emphasis designing a specific still for any other reason than distilling. But there seemed to be a kind of inherent similarity between a lot of the distilleries here with the kind of same structure. So that's something that's really important to any distillery. It's probably in Campbeltown, you know, that structure. Because it's obviously, you know, it's sort of wide. It's wide, isn't it? So rather it's going thin and up, it's short and wide. So you're really getting a great, you know, you're getting all these complex flavours, and that's giving it a complexity as well, a robustness, structure, oiliness, everything that you'd want. Whereas when you get to this one, you can obviously fine tune it. You're making the cuts here, and it's slightly easier. It's giving you a more clinical approach with this still, the shape of it. So let's have a wee look at the cooling first while we're up here, guys, okay? The wall says a story, doesn't it? You can see changes, and every window's filled in and changed. It's just Campbeltown. That's exactly what I mean about Campbeltown, you know, it's just getting that element of stepping back in time. So, obviously, the hot vapours, and they're quite long, the line arms there, okay? But obviously, the shell and tube condensers are really an extension of the still, okay? So they're basically, they're giving it that wee extra, that extra copper hit, that extra distillation. It's part of the process, a shell and tube condenser. It's always going to be, it's always going to lighten it ever so slightly, okay? So, you see the cooling tower, you pump cold, you know this, the process, cold water through them, in through the bottom, up through the top. You've got about 32 28mm copper tubes in a bundle. The water's up through them. The hot vapour's hitting that, condensing, running down in the tailpipe and into the safe there. So, works so well, you know, they really do. You can see the temperature gradient on it. Hot gas, liquid, time it reaches the bottom. Hot gas, liquid. You see they've got a crook in that one too. Obviously they put the hole in the wall in the wrong place, and they obviously had to adjust it. That's the way it was. You know, there was no specifics. It's obviously something we'd always replicate now, you know. Which it's pretty meaningless, but the only aspect with that is that the length. That's the main thing, the length of that vapour tube there. So there we go, guys. We'll head back in. It's quite noisy out here. Okay, so that is, as I say, it's sitting at 70%. You see that there, okay? So
yeah, just shy of 7.
Yeah, okay. So it's coming down, 69, 70. Wonderful stuff, and that's what you want. You know, when you look at it, you get it in the glass. There should be an oiliness to it, you know. So that's obviously what we're talking about with that still. Okay. Absolutely beautiful. It really is. This is.
That is absolutely beautiful. I wholeheartedly agree with it.
You know, it's very palatable. There's a sweetness, there's a maltiness.
I can taste the brackish of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saltiness, the brackish.
Absolutely. And that's a bit of a misnomer too, because sodium and distillation don't go well together.
Yes.
You know, so you should really, you should lose all sodium through distillation, but there's certainly a, whether it's nitrite salts or whatever it is, but yeah, there's definitely a saltiness, isn't there? Is there? Cheers, enjoy guys. Your good health. Enjoy. Lovely stuff, isn't it? Sweet, well balanced. That's what you want. Lovely.
That's really, real. I mean, that is nailed the complexity there already, and it's lovely balance. But the body of it's nice. It's nice, oily, viscosity to it.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Genuinely, really, really impressive.
Everything like that you should have. You know, it should all be there. You know, it really should. It should come together well. If it.
Even on the arrival, it's not even sharp on the arrival. You know, it's
Aye.
you know, I mean, I've tasted a lot of new nice spirits, and a lot of them are and that's, I mean, 70%. Oh, that's not. Kind of got a roundedness to it just straight away.
It's quite accessible, isn't it? You know, it doesn't hit you straight away. You know, it's got a lovely softness there to it, which is really nice. And I think it's, you know, I always look at it and I think, well, it's a new make spirit. It's quite content with itself. Normally, new make spirits fiery, angry, you know, and it needs time to calm down, and that's fine. Something like this, I feel, when it goes into the cask, it's quite docile, and the reaction of this stuff in the cask chemically, it really, really comes together well. Really, really works. And that's what you want. You know, you want something that's, it's got all the characteristics of the distillery. As you say, it's got a certain amount of robustness, but yet it's soft in approach. It's got an oiliness and brackishness. Absolutely, there's that salinity. Fruit. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Malted.
The levels of complexity on that just straight away.
Lovely. Love it, absolutely love it. Yeah. And obviously, well, the stills, you see 2 stills there, so you get the wash still, the spirit still, all done by hand. So if you look at the 2 steam valves, each still's got 2 steam valves. You're obviously indirect heating by steam. Okay, so that indirect heating by steam allows the stillman to, obviously, he can control that, but that's the only control method he's got. Controlling these stills. Aye, it does that. That's because you've altered the steam balance there. That's what you'll get. It'll do that for a wee while. That's why you always got to be watching. It's not just, obviously, you get the alcohol coming out there too. It's not just a case of settling it down. You know, it's a case of using your senses, you know, your sight. Sound. Sound's a great one, because you can hear them. Smell. You smell the pot ale?
Yeah.
Pot ale coming out of there. So wonderful pot ale. So it's obviously keeping an eye on everything. You know, it's keeping an eye on all the different aspects there. You know, and make sure it comes together. So as I say, Hector, he put the steam on there, keeping an eye on instruments, so he knows exactly where he's at. But as I say, you know, the main aspect is, you know when you bring that still in, you know what it needs to do, and you're keeping an eye on it. You look at your instruments, that's the only guide you've got when it gets through to its distilling. It's through here. We don't know the temperature, we don't know the strength of it until it gets to this point. Okay? That's why experience, same as the Martian, experience. But when you get something that's of a reasonable quality and it's made by the human hand, I think you're on a good thing. So guys, so absolutely, we'll distill here. You know the process, as I say, you know, we'll obviously, I use the word boil, but it's not getting the boiling point. Through the condenser we looked at, in the tailpipe, wash at between 7 and 8%. We're going to get low wines in here, and straight away we're getting a lot of apple pear coming through there. Okay, keeping an eye on the density, and you can run that reasonably hot, but run it right down to 1%, there or thereabouts. Okay, yeah. Low wines, into the low wines and faints receiver. Okay, and once we get that in here, then we've got enough to obviously 2 charges of that, pump it up to the low wines and faints charger, gravitate it into the wee still, the spirit still. Okay, same idea, you know, he's going to apply the steam, he's going to bring it in, so it's going to come in, he's going to move this, he's going to move the spout into this bowl, bring it in. Okay, still, it's what you seen there earlier, it's going to come through, it's going to be volatile, it's going to take a while to settle down, you know, it's the pressure differential in that spout, you'll see it moving, so it's just trying to find its balance, and how you apply that steam. Just a little bit of steam will make a huge difference to the reflux, everything. So it's just finding it, getting it come in, and you need heat on straight away to get the distillation process working. Get it in, bring it in, let it find its feet, hence 4 shots. Everyone runs 4 shots. You've got to do that, because you're obviously getting rid of a lot of that volatility, the methanols, etc. A lot of that initial previous distillation and the initial distillation off of this. So fire it through, 4 shots in here, just let it find its feet. Then when it starts to settle down, then you'll make the cuts. Okay, 20 minutes, you'll cut it back into this bowl here, okay? But at that stage you'll have taken some of the steam off. So you're maybe a turn and a half off on the wee valve there, slow it down, 6 centimetres an hour. So centimetres. So that far away on this one, we're looking at 6 centimetres an hour. So we'll run the middle cut into here, 6 centimetres an hour, nice and slow. We know where we're at. You're going to be about 70, initially it would come in about 74, 75%. We'll drop down to about 73, 72-ish, depending on the strength of the material. Run that to about 63, heart of the run. But it's just getting that run right. You know, it's got to get it in, you've got to settle it down, it's got to be happy there. Everything's got to be working. And it's the Stillman that's making that happen. Yeah. And it's his skill. There's nothing to tell him what to do. There's no instruction manual at Glen Scotia. It's all how they do it, and they know how to do it. And the next man knows how to do it, and that's really important. So they'll run that 6 centimetres an hour. If you've got more than that, you're too fast. If you're less than that, chances are you're too slow. Yeah. So you just got to get it right.
Another high-tech that.
Ah, it really is. The old dip rod. That's it. I tell you, the price of them, you're probably cheaper with a laptop. You know. Anyway, that's another story. So yeah, absolutely. So you basically keep that going right down to 63, and then he'll do the same. He'll change it back over to here, and then that's him. Yeah. That's so yeah. It's once you get below that, down to 1%, you're obviously running the faints. You know, or 63 below, down to 1% faints in here. So 4 shots. Low wines, faints in here for distillation. Spent lees, pot ale out. So nothing to it. Right, so the dunnage is in there, but I just want you to look at obviously that's Benmore, so that's old former Benmore distillery there. You see the kiln at the end, the molten floor, etc. That's shut in the 1920s, 28, something like that. It's been in the same company since 1931, I believe. So over here you'd Highland, Kintyre, Dallaruan, Glenside distilleries, all up there before you go out the town. Down at Tesco's, this tractor's coming in here I think, so we'll move quickly. That down at Tesco's you can see that's where I get that new make. So that used to be an old distillery back in the 20s and disappeared. So we'll just move out the way of this guy. He's just coming in here. So yeah. So that's where that was. And see beyond it, you see the small bit of wall?
Yeah. That's
basically Loch End Bonded, or what was Loch End Bonded Warehouse. And just beyond that, Hazelburn. So that's where obviously the Japanese Matasaka Taketsuru came to learn how to make whiskey.